Good. All right, good evening, and welcome to the City of Sandwich Committee of the Whole meeting tonight. Tonight is Monday, January 19th, 7 p.m. The meeting is called to order. If you'll please rise, Alderwoman Janelle Inman will lead us in a pledge of allegiance. Pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, thank you. Well, the clerk E, please call the roll.
Alderman Arnett,
Here.
Alderman Chun,
Here.
Alderman Dankel,
Here.
Alderwoman Erickson.
Here.
Alderwoman Inman.
Here.
Alderman Ketchum.
Here.
Alderman Kreinbrink.
Here.
And Alderman Robinson is absent.
Okay, we'll start with Jamie Gabu. Said it wrong, didn't I? Jimmy, all right, say it for me again. Gabu, there you go. All right, Jimmy is our new water superintendent. So he is here tonight to talk to council a little bit about his experience with us.
Yeah, so I've been in the water industry for 10 years, and this isn't like a career that I just kind of fell into. I actually pursued this. I went to the ERTC down at Edwardsville, which is a program that specializes in water and wastewater operations. I also have a wastewater license, but most importantly for the water superintendent position, I have a Class A water license. I've had it for over 8 years now. Couple things that I noticed in my brief. I started December 16th here. The water department seems to be the redheaded stepchild of Public Works. You know, like the wastewater plant has had pretty nice innovations. It's a nice clean plant and stuff like that. Streets, I don't know too much about streets equipment, but they seem to be pretty well off. So, I mean, it is what it is, right? Things didn't get improved for a while. It seemed like there was maybe people weren't asking for what they needed when they needed it. So we're kind of behind the ball right now on where we should be, in my opinion. That old water plant is not great. Like, I think you guys have all seen it at this point, and you know, that's probably priority number one, is trying to get that isolated out and removed. So that is that. The good thing is that the personnel that I've worked with has all been really good. Josh is the water operator that I work with daily, and he seems to be very, very competent in what he's doing. And he does a lot of the work himself. He's trained me on a lot of things that I haven't done, you know, because before I was in a plant only, so I never had to do like water reads or shut-offs or anything like that. So it's been a learning experience for that, but he's been a great teacher for me, and I, you know, really appreciate his efforts. Joe Severson was here when I got here, and he also showed me quite a bit with like the purchasing. I guess he was doing all like the testing and all that stuff. So he was also a great resource. The other thing I noticed, you know, right away is that like we have 2 people at the water plant, and I don't think that's enough to achieve what we want to do. So a lot of the times, if we're looking at like most of the jobs to improve things like fixing B-boxes, fixing hydrants, you know, getting some kind of like consistent program to exercise valves and whatnot, it would be very difficult for 2 people to do it because basically one person has to run the plant day-to-day stuff and then things that come up, which, and then the other person can't do that other work alone. They need somebody else to help them out. So we've been, you know, I'm not sure what we've done because we can't do a lot of that work in the cold right now in the winter because things will freeze and we will freeze. But yeah, once we do get that second operator and myself in there, we can actually start improving things and, you know, fixing things. We have if you ever guys stop at the water plant, the new one, we have a list of about 30 services that we know of and like 10 hydrants that need to be repaired. So we got a laundry list of things to work on. So I would really like another person to help me out with that sort of stuff. And I think you guys are the ones that say I can or can't.
Actually, I'll correct you. You actually have 2.5 FTE. Mr. Severson works part-time in your department, so
Okay.
if he's not there, I need to know that.
Okay.
Okay.
The last thing that I think is really unique about Sandwich is that we do try to help people quite a bit as far as like, you know, when we're doing shut-offs, like we try to knock on the door and let them know like, hey, go pay your bill before we shut you off and stuff like that, because we want to give these people, the people that live here, every chance they can to avoid, you know, that annoying like fees and whatnot. not annoying fees, necessary fees that are an incentive to make them pay their bills. But the other thing is, we help people out with like, why do I have high water usage? I like that we do that. I think that's a unique thing for the Sandwich Water Department. Yeah, so any questions for me? Anything like that?
I just want to say that everybody here at council has been hearing me advocate for another employee for the water department. I think exercising our valves and getting our system running the way it should be our top priority. I mean, when we're having to do water main repairs live because we can't shut a valve off, I think it's ridiculous.
Yeah, I thankfully haven't had any of those issues personally yet, but I can understand how frustrating that would be if you're not equipped to do hot taps and whatnot. That could make it real messy for your crew. Yeah.
Yeah, I do have a comment. I think one of the things with being in a smaller community is that we do have to multitask, right? So I think what has always been the additional personnel for the water department has been the streets department to come over and help. And that's one of those unnecessary evils, I guess, is what happens, right? So what ends up happening is we're trying to get work on a streets department, but then we have to stop and then go do stuff for the water department. So what I would really like to do is I'd really like to have all the superintendents get together and formulate a game plan of how to still continue that way to make things work, but then also come up with a strategy for how we can improve and better our head count to then become self-sufficient, right?
Yes.
Because we do need to get there eventually. Coming into the organization here, you're seeing a bunch of things that are good and a bunch of things that need a bunch of work, right? So I like how you've looked at the pros and you've looked at the cons and you're come up with this strategy. We're going to the budget season, so I think that's the other aspect is we need to kind of look at that. EEI has a very comprehensive plan put in place for what we want to do with the water department and the sanitary side of the house. So I think if we follow that course of action, we're going to be in a lot better position. And I think that strategy also does have headcount put into it with the different rates that are going to be put into place over the course of the next couple of years.
Piggybacking off of what you said, it is nice when the streets guys can come help us out, or like a 50-50 guy can come help us out. But there is value in somebody that does it every day, that is seeing things every day and specializing in that. Like streets guys, they're very good at like the more basic tasks, reading meters and stuff like that. But when it comes to like rebuilding hydrants and stuff, you want people that are,
Oh, yeah, repetitive on
Specializing into
it,
water.
exactly. So it's gonna be more efficient and you're gonna be more timely and everything like that. So I'm sure you're gonna find other things that are gonna need additional, bandwidth added to them in order to make them better. But I like the fact that you came to the council here with pros and cons of what you've found so far, and there's only one way to go, right? Onward and upward, so I
Yes, sir.
appreciate it.
All right, anyone else?
Thank you for your time,
thank you.
Jimmy. Thank you.
All right. See you guys. Thank you.
All right, Pastor Call cannot be here tonight. He's not feeling well. He's learning on the weather, so we'll have him at our February 2nd meeting to present him with a celebration and proclamation. Moving on to 4B, this is the presentation from Sean Ajazi of Progressive Solutions for a proposed solar project. John, would you come on up? We have a new tech team tonight.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Tonight, we're here to look at how to control escalating power cost and power demand. It's currently a hot topic, especially throughout Pennsylvania, New Jersey, Maryland Transmission Authority, which is ComEd, is part of that grid. Going into the existing supply contract, we did contemplate how to start lowering those costs in the structure that we did put in. What I want to do is kind of just give you an overview of kind of what the city has done previously, and just kind of talk about that program that was canceled, but just kind of give you a high-level overview, kind of hit what the market's doing, why this is very beneficial, talk about the incentives that are available, and then talk about the options that we have presented to city staff and then to bring forward to the board. So back in, Don, if you want to. Back in 2022, the city did enter into what was called a power purchase agreement with GRNE Solar. It was for a solar project, about 200 kW solar array at the water treatment plant. That program was a lease, so the city did not own, operate, or maintain. It was to be fully done by GRNE Solar. It was a 25-year term. They were responsible for maintaining and decommissioning the field, and the projected savings was around $15,000 under that program. The city wouldn't monetize the tax credits that were available or any of the incentives. It was just a lowering of the energy cost. The programs that we're looking at now, it would be more of an ownership type of program for the city with maintenance agreements with the developers that are in place for both programs. The savings would increase then to about $28,000 to $44,000 a year, depending on the size, right? We keep the solar the way it is, but then look at other options with battery energy storage. So this just kind of gives you a cursory of what has happened. We did enter it into a contract that did actually, Nelnet Renewable, which bought GRNE, did cancel that contract. And we also looked at, in the new bids, adding in $15,000 for reimbursement to the attorney costs, which were added due to the negotiation for the Nelnet cancellation of the field. So why is this important? Is that power prices in ComEd's service territory are going up due to capacity cost. The capacity cost is the second largest component outside of your energy cost on your bill. These costs have gone from $26 per megawatt hour day to this year, this June, beginning to be $329 per megawatt hour day. Next year, they're also then going to be going up again to $334. So this cost is spread out through ComEd service territory. And how you have to look at this is everybody has a footprint in this grid. It's a 13-state transmission authority. ComEd is a part of it. And what we want to do is we want to drive down our peak load into this cost component. And the only way you really do that is lowering your peak performance during the day, hitting the peak hours over the summer. There's about 22 different hours that you need to hit. And you have to look at doing this by doing solar or other energy programs to really drive down this cost. What ComEd does allow you to do right now is also drive your costs negative. So instead of now you're paying these higher costs with those peak capacity costs for both transmission and capacity, we can drive it down with solar and get it negative with a battery for the wastewater treatment plant. Now, it is going to take about 12 to 18, maybe 24 months because it doesn't go fast, anything with solar and or batteries. But this really is going to be our main driver on how to lower our overall cost. Will you, next one's on. So this is just an article, kind of, it's small, so I know you guys got the packet, but this is really talking to like why ComEd is really having increased cost. And it's really grid performance issues as well as data centers. I know everybody's read articles about data centers, but it's really the grid is strained. We're at a capacity on that grid. And so costs are going to continually rise. Will you go to the next one? So what options are available? Well, we just stay status quo. We buy our energy on the commodity basis. We pass through the other costs for increase of capacity, increase of transmission. We look at the state and federal incentives that are available, which is what this program is looking at. So there's a couple of different programs through the state and federal level. Recently, CERGNA, the Climate and Reliable Grid Affordability Act, was just recently passed by the state of Illinois, signed a couple weeks ago by the governor. This puts an added emphasis on base load power through the grid for ComEd. So this allows for additional battery programs to come online, and it's on a utility scale as well as a behind the meter customer. We also had the One Big Beautiful Bill, which was a federal tax and equity program that was done by the federal government. That actually lowered the solar credits. It put a timetable for which solar credits under the federal tax credit will be sunset. But what it did not touch is the base load power for batteries. Those are still extended under the Inflation Reduction Act through 2040. So really why this does matter is it allows for improved project ROI and payback because the incentives are still available for the city to own and operate a project. It enables resiliency during peak outages. It drives down your costs during those peak times. You now become a generator of power, not a power consumer. And then it also aligns to sustainability as well as other state programs for funding mechanisms, which the city has ability to borrow money at a very discounted price. Don, will you go? Why do we want to pair solar with battery? Well, solar allows you to get the real peaks during the day. What battery also provides for the city is a threefold approach. It further drives down your peaks. It allows you to get additional backup generation. So you have a backup generator at the wastewater treatment plant. The battery will work as a microgrid component, which the battery will start and go first before the generator needs to kick on. There's a 4-hour window on the battery. The third piece here for pairing battery with solar is that batteries then can get deployed back into the market. It checks the market signals every 2 seconds and says charge or discharge. So now the city will have the ability to generate revenue by deploying the battery through the software program at designed values so that the battery then can deploy during the peak days during that 13-state grid, because it's not just ComEd. You gotta look at Maryland, you gotta look at Pennsylvania, you gotta look at Ohio. So this allows you to also now get increased revenue instead of just always outlaying capital and monetize the tax credits that are available. Go ahead, Deb. So what we looked at is, we worked with staff and looked at keeping the solar project at the 200 kW at the wastewater treatment plant. All the specs remain the same: system, panels, size, the run that's already been contemplated around the road into the water treatment plant, the extra conduits that are there. We kept all of that the same. Then we looked at 3 different battery options for battery energy storage. We looked at a 125 kW battery, a 250 kW battery, and a 500 kW battery. Each battery costs different, so we did look at economics on each one of those. And really the footprint changes depending on the size of the battery. The 500 kW battery is about a 30-foot shipping container. The 125 kW battery is about 4 parking spaces. So you can see the delta of size. What we looked at is a total turnkey purchase price, so outlaying the capital. We looked at all of the incentives that come back. You got an annual incentive come back. You've got upfront capital incentives. You have the revenue piece that comes into play, and then you have to look at the total ROI. And in all cases, the ROI is less than 5 years for the city to be cash flow positive, especially with a financing agreement through the Illinois Finance Authority. And then we also looked at maintenance. So we put in a maintenance agreement with each, the battery developer and the solar developer, so that the city's staff can continue to maintain city water treatment options. The maintenance agreement with the company is they're the solar developer, they're the battery company. They maintain everything. So it's an ongoing maintenance agreement with them, and that's already upfront contemplated in the economics, so there's no additional costs. Don, will you, next one. So this slide really tells you where we want to drive down the cost. Yeah, can you zoom in? Keep going in. So if you look at the top here, this is actually the annual capacity and transmission cost right here at the top for the water treatment facility. So as you can see, in addition to the cost going up from last year to this year, the capacity cost is going from 90 to 130 kW. And you can also look at that at the network PLC. So when we look at a 200 kW solar array and a 125 to a 500 kW battery, we're looking at lowering this peak to a point where it goes negative and then getting a cost that's gonna be zeroed out and then further negated so that you're gonna get an annual check back at the capacity cost with a negative PLC value. So again, looking at the total spend and driving down your cost as best as possible. Next slide. And zoom out. So really how it works is it's a microgrid situation. So it's all ran by software. The solar will be directly connected into the wastewater treatment plant meter. The battery will also be integrated directly into the meter at the wastewater treatment plant. It is ran by third-party software. In this case, it's Intelligence Generation. They do all 12 batteries currently in ComEd service territory with their software program. The program is always connected to the grid. The battery will only back up when there's not a ComEd signal. That is a 4-hour duration. They are lithium-ion batteries. And then everything goes through ComEd system. So ComEd monitors both the send out of power and the power that is purchased from the grid, right? So there are times where you're gonna be pushing more power back on solar, the battery's gonna be pushing power back. It's a seamless dance between the software company and ComEd system. And really, we kind of went through this, but it's earn, save, and protect. You earn revenue by deploying the battery, you save by lowering your values, and then you further protect your system by having backup generation and a battery backup. So here's the economics. There's 3 of them on the next 3 slides. This is the 200 kW battery with 200 kW solar with 125 kW battery. Don, can you zoom in just a tad? Thanks. So the outlay, I'm gonna have to, hold on one second. I have it on my phone. So for this option, the outlay of capital would be $1,296,000 upfront. And then the city would then get back first year. I'm sorry, hold on one second. The city would get back everything but $308,000 between the frequency regulation, the ComEd smart inverter rebate, the battery energy storage rebate, the federal tax credit. Even though you don't pay income tax, you do get a tax credit available for the direct pay through the battery energy programs. And then you also get energy savings, and then you get the ComEd SREC incentive, which is paid out over 7 years with a lump sum in year 15. So over your cash flow positive in year 5 and over a 25-year term, the city will then get back everything and make $747,000 to be used for other programs, upgrades, and everything else to that effect. Don, will you go to the next one? This is the 200 kW battery with the 200 kW solar with 250 kW battery. The city will receive 75% of the initial investment, $1.4 million back with state and federal incentives. The return is actually in year 8 in this scenario with a positive cash flow of $951,000 over a 25-year term. And then if you go to the next one. And this is a larger battery, 500 kW battery with a 200 kW solar. This would be, city would receive $2.3 million back of the initial investment with state and federal incentives. The return on investment's year 6 and a positive cash flow of almost $3.3 million over a 25-year term. So we haven't fully put together a path of which one, right? It just all depends on the Illinois Finance Authority. I know Don was working on that at the end of last week. This is a great program, all funded through both the state incentives that are available and the federal incentives that are available. A lot of our governmental customers, municipalities are beginning to look at this further because of the increased demand cost. There's such a high number on the electric bill outside of the commodity cost that still continues to rise, that it's just now we're getting more and more of these conversations, and they're gonna be for the next 3 to 5 years. And with that, I'll take any questions from the board because I'm sure there's a lot.
Council, questions?
Yeah.
Go ahead, Dan.
How long does that battery last?
15 years.
That's a 15-year battery.
15
So
years.
at year 15, what's the cost to replace that battery?
Yeah, it would be at the cost at that time, so we don't really know what the full cost would be. The batteries will still run, just like solar panels, they can still run after that life cycle. So you could either decommission it yourself, you can keep it running, because there will still be some run, or there might be a new program that says, you know, kind of like a gas turbine program where they like recycle it or bring it back up to running speed. So the contemplation of replacement after year 15 is not built into these economics because it's all going to be dependent on the incentives and what the programs that are available at that time. We've cut the energy cost or energy savings at 25 years, and then the maintenance cost we also kept for 25 years because there's still going to be ongoing maintenance if you keep the battery online.
What's the cost of battery right now?
Each scenario is there's different scenarios with the battery cost. So it ranges from about $700,000, about $800,000 for the 125 kW battery, all the way up to about $3 million for the 500 kW battery. I'm sorry,
Wiping out-
1.7 million for the
Wiping
500
out
kW.
all profit.
What was that?
Wiping out all profit. once
No,
we go to
those are,
replace.
the costs are incorporated in here. So all of the costs for solar and battery are incorporated in here. This is
No,
all.
I'm saying when we go to replace it at year 15, because ultimately you gave us over 25 years how much profit we would make over that time.
Yeah.
So at year 15, we have to replace a battery that's anywhere between $800 and $3 million of today's cost.
There could be incentives that are available that pay for the whole thing, and it could be a retrofit of a battery program. You know, you kind of got to look at it as a piece of equipment, right? It's a equipment that, no different than an air conditioner or stuff to that effect, right? There would be other programs that are available to give you incentives. So I can't contemplate what that cost is going to be. I can only kind of show you what the profit is today.
Right now, the Go Green movement is huge. In 15 years, it might not be so huge. People might be tired of looking at the solar panels and the wind farms and
Yeah, I agree with you on that, but this is base load power. This is to help ComEd's grid. So it's a different kind of analysis versus the Go Green. It's actually helping the grid during those times. So there's actually going to be additional programs potentially, and there are through the new act that was signed, the CPNG Act, Surgeon Act, that basically will have virtual power plants for batteries for deployment and incentives available for that. So this is more, the solar piece, yes, you're right, that's kind of the subsiding and the sunset of the tax credits under the current administration and stuff to that effect. Batteries are helping the ComEd utility side for those peak moments when the grid will be strained. And there are times that the grid is strained.
Okay, other questions?
What kind of protection from weather do the, like lightning?
Yeah.
What happens if everything gets overloaded and this thing goes kaput? Are there protections
There's
in
relay
there for-
protections, they're self-contained units, so they're self-contained. They have their own cooling systems, everything else to that effect. So they have their own cooling systems, suppression systems, everything else to that effect. They're grounded and everything. So, you know, if they lose ComEd power and they have the emergency kick on, right, then you'll have 4-hour duration. But if lightning strikes it, you know, it'll just be like any other piece of equipment that, you know, there could be a loss. You know, that would be something I'd take further off and say, if there was a lightning strike, what would happen? And I can come back to you on that. I don't have the exact scenario, but, because I don't have that. It hasn't, nobody's told me about the lightning
No, I
strike.
understand that. And then
Seen articles on other things, so.
is that part of is that an would that then be an insurance
Insurance,
thing?
yeah.
Or, okay.
Insurance, and then you have the maintenance agreement with the developer. So they would be the one that would handle it, not city staff or anything else to that effect.
Okay, thank you.
So on your second column, you're saying the first year annual electric cost savings of what, 75,000?
Under the 200 kW of 500
Yeah,
battery
whatever
would be
that's the
75,000.
500 KW.
Yep.
So, you know, we've identified that this is an area to help our plant out with the excessive cost. But we've been burned on a solar deal before.
I agree with that.
And we
100%.
got burned on the people that bought the solar company out, that we got burned on until we had to settle. So I know we see the need and what it can do, but I think we're always cautious about entering into an agreement that may or may not work.
So this would be different than that, Mayor, and I appreciate that because we also were burned by that deal as well. We had 20 projects that were part of that. This would be city-owned, so the city would own that. So it wouldn't be a lease, you wouldn't have to worry about a third party. You only have a maintenance agreement with them. You will be owning this, so it's a different structure in that case. And you would have developers that would be working for the city on the project. So you wouldn't have a third party that could sell it and then buy the lease and stuff to that effect, and then effectively cancel it, just kind of like what happened under the previous.
I had equal concerns about the batteries. Who will be building the storage facility for the batteries?
Yeah, we went out to bid, we've identified 2 companies. It would be General Energy or Verde Energy Solutions. We haven't finalized that whole piece yet, so, you know, we would bring back a formal, this is who we would recommend, you know, with the board.
Is that or is that not part of the cost?
That is part of the cost.
Okay. Can you explain a little bit about how the financing would work for the project? We've seen some big numbers, 1.2 million, 2.9 million, 1.9 million. What would that look like for us?
I will let Don handle that one, because he's been working with the finance
Well, yeah,
authority.
so Mayor, I've been working with the Illinois Finance Authority, who's really big into this. back when the first project was done, tax credits were not available to municipalities. That law has changed, which changes the structure. In essence, what it comes down to is about 70% of the capital costs have incentives, have tax incentives, rebates, and that. The Illinois Finance Authority would give us a loan for that 70% of the project on an interest only until all those incentives were received, and we turn it back over to them and pay them out. The other 30% is got to come through a local lender. However, Illinois Finance Authority will, through the SSBCI program, it's a program in which they would share the cost with a local bank. And there's only certain banks, and they gave me the list. I did have a meeting with Midland Bank Thursday, who's very familiar with this. They would take half of the remaining loan of the 30%. The Finance Authority would take half of that loan, and they do it at 3%. And Midland would take the other half at whatever their rate is at the time, and then it would get blended. So we'd be a couple points under market on the balance. And like Alderman Danko pointed out, you're talking about a $75,000 savings in year one, and that's where the payments are coming to take over the rest of the capital expense, the final 30%. So we expect that to be done in 5 to 7 years, depending on the size of the battery. Also, when we started talking, we didn't think about the battery until we started getting serious with the Finance Authority, and they asked, what's your backup? Well, I guess the backup is we turn it back over to ComEd, something goes down. And they said, no, you gotta have an electric backup to qualify. So we were back, and we had discussed with Sean using the batteries somewhere in the future. So we went back to Sean and said, hey, they want this as the sec, so that had to be kind of restructured a little bit. And when we first started, there was no incentives coming back on a battery. Now there's incentives coming back on the battery too. So getting delayed by the Finance Authority and throwing in this battery, causing the whole thing to be restructured, actually ended up financially advantageous to us.
So I know in the past, we had to modify our electrical plan with our current plant upgrades. I don't know if that would fit into this, since we've already spent money for that. And my other question is, I know that the green agreement, the engineering firm they were using was supposed to go to the Army Corps of Engineers and the Illinois Department of Natural Resources to get permission to use that area, because I believe it's in a wetland.
Yes.
I still don't know what the status of that is, because the deal fell apart.
We will have to go back in and approve that. We have all of the context, all that was provided to us through the process. So we know that for the solar piece would be an expedited process, because we know exactly who to talk to through both the environmental engineer and the other engineers that were working on the program. So it would be a completely different company. They'd still have to file the ComEd interconnection piece and everything else to that effect. The conduit run remains the same. That was already identified. There is also road upgrades that have been identified by EEI under the original plan that we have to also follow as well. So that's all been contemplated into these numbers. What we can do is add the finance numbers to these when we bring it back, to when the board would like to fully, see and talk about it. And we could modify and show you the exact cost with the financing piece, so that we get the true dollars, because that is not incorporated in here, because we haven't had that all finalized with the Illinois Finance Authority yet.
And my last question, has anyone done this yet?
Yeah, there are companies that have done solar and battery.
Any municipalities?
There's not a lot of municipalities that have done the battery piece. The customers that we have working right now that are already into the battery process are Fox Metro Water Reclamation District. They're putting in 2 megawatt-hour batteries. They're in the interconnection process, which takes ComEd some time. It took them 555 days to even give us a project timeline for that. And then there's Fox River Water Reclamation District. We got the City of Aurora that's looking at it for some of their facilities. We've talked to some school districts and everything else to that effect. It's becoming more and more the piece of the conversation. It's just like solar was 6-7 years ago. It's kind of bringing to the forefront because of the new incentives and the programs. And we're just, adjusting to what the options are out there as well. So there are manufacturing plants and stuff to that effect that have had it, and for-profit business, Apt Electronics, G&W Electric, Majid Glove. And, we can always take anybody out there and show them what these systems are. But it's becoming more and more prevalent with the rising cost. It's all driven to the demand cost and the high cost of capacity.
So is the maintenance cost, the yearly maintenance cost in these numbers?
Yes, the yearly maintenance cost.
And then what about the warranty? How long is that panel warranted for?
Yeah, the panels are warranted for 25 years, the battery's warranted for 15 years. The
Okay.
racking will be for 25 years as well. The inverters are warranted for 10 years. And then contemplated in the number is to have the smart inverters replaced at year 10 or whenever they go out and have them upgraded to the newest, latest, greatest technology or put in new ones under that 10-year agreement. So that's been contemplated. So it's up 20 years for the inverters, 25 years for the racking, 25 years for the panels.
And then there's decommissioning costs? In case, what happens after 25 years and these
Yeah,
panels no longer work?
the decommissioning cost would be at the cost at that time, so that would be on the city to
What is it
decommission.
running now?
Well,
Any idea?
I'd have to put the analysis together, because there's, time value of money, as well as structural steel cost, as well as, there's a run, we do it with large-scale, utility-scale solar stuff, so we can put that together, of what the decommission cost potentially would be.
We just did decommissioning, the cost for the one across on Route 34, and it's quite expensive. So as a city, that would be our bucket to bear, along with the battery. That's why I'm concerned, battery costs over time, decommissioning costs over time. I mean, do we end up upside down in this thing after 25 years? That's my ultimate worry.
Yeah, I'll put that together and bring that back, or I can provide that to the board, what the cost would be for.
Well, I'd like to, all this up here, we'd like to have forwarded to us too.
Yeah, that should have been in the board packet. I did send it. No?
It's not mine.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I have that. We can get that over to you really quick.
Okay.
Absolutely.
I have a question. So if we look at year one, there's a cost savings of 75.8. Year two, it drops to 63.8. If electricity is increasing next year, the following year, why would that number drop?
Yeah, so we structured it on your existing electric contract, and then we'll restructure your energy contract for different costs. So capacity and transmission, and then your energy contract. So, yeah, you know what, that's a great, my assumption is it would be up every year. Let me take
Yeah,
that.
I would have thought it would have increased because if the efficiencies are put into place, I mean, it would probably drop down marginal because of the cost increases.
Yeah,
Right, but
yeah.
I think that's a pretty big spread. But then, as we get further along, those
does
are
go.
assumptions of what the rates are going to be,
Well,
right?
it's based on a 2% escalation
Growth,
factor every
2%
year.
growth,
Yeah,
but what was
2%.
the growth between the previous year?
Yeah,
So,
it's close to 2.5%.
so that's a conservative number based upon what you've seen historically, right?
Yes. We've seen it as high as 5% in the industry. I just think 5% is way too much.
Then I was going back in my mind about the size of the solar that we had originally planned. My recollection of that is that we were building that strictly to be able to take care of the daily operations of that facility throughout the day. And that was at 200 kW. But now we're seeing that the 200 kW is large enough to support battery storage.
It's partnered with, so it's both. So the 200 kW we kept as the same size as originally structured. And the reason why is because of the conduit run and the extra conduits that were put into the existing plant infrastructure. We didn't want to change anything, what's already been designed for that project. So that 200 kW will knock out the PLC value for the plant. The battery piece will further drive down that cost and make it negative. So the battery piece is an added value or an added upgrade.
Yeah, I guess this is a lot of information to absorb in 20 minutes, but
Sure.
my understanding was though is that if the solar panels were generating enough electricity to power the plant during the day, once the sun sets, it's done. So in this case, we would be running off of our electrical supplier during the day and banking it?
So your solar would be on during the day, right? Just like your house.
Right?
Right? And then at night, ComEd would come back on. The battery would work in the background and say, should we charge or discharge based on the market signals? If
Okay.
it's not gonna be a revenue piece for the city, then it's not gonna discharge. It's gonna stay in a status quo of charge. right? Because you don't want to put the power back onto the grid because there's additional potential cost on during the day if the battery goes out for your distribution facilities charge to go out.
Right.
It's not going to wipe out your energy bill. It's going to lower the energy bill. You're
hear
still
ya.
going to have to pay the ComEd side.
Yeah. And
So
then-
you're going to have net metering. Sorry, I just wanted to
No,
make
go
sure.
ahead, sorry.
You're going to have net metering, so there's going to be collar months and overproduction when the sun's always shining. That's going to be netted out with ComEd every half hour. The battery is going to be an additional piece working in the background. So there'll be times that the battery is charged by the solar because power's going through one or the, through the grid, and it's not color-coded electrons, but there is going to be pieces where they're be seamlessly working at the same time. But most of the time, your battery is probably going to be deployed in the off-peak hours or at night, because that's when the market signals change and there could be a lot of fluctuation, because there are times in ComEd that power prices go negative because of the windmills, and they have, a tax credit to run at a certain number.
Sure. And then on the like one of the first slides, you had our demand peak values. So that's when our system is the highest, everything's locked and loaded, and everything's running operationally. So are there still incentives that we could participate in, like for variable frequency motors, drive motors and so forth, to be able to get the startup so we don't have that demand
You
rate
have,
going high? And then on the other side of that, the consumption to be able to balance that so that we can drop our rates down to where we're in a more manageable tolerance.
so the variable frequency drives were looked at. We did not have, ComEd did come out and do an assessment. I
Okay.
would prefer to Don for that, because I don't think it's an option because of how the system runs currently, if my memory serves me right. But Don can speak more of
Yeah,
that.
I'm brainstorming over here of how we could,
So the battery came about because of the Illinois Finance Authority. The piece of the Finance Authority is solar with battery energy storage, right? So to get that financing loan, you have to have a battery piece to the solar. The solar piece just kept it at the same size. With solar, you can lower that all the way down to 10 kW if you want, right? Because those tax credits have a sunset. The battery piece is still the long-term federal tax credit that are available, and the ComEd incentives are available. So, we kept it at 200. We also looked at it at 450. We looked at increasing the solar array to the whole piece of that is available. It just wasn't cost effective, plus it would cause additional upgrades to the plant. And we didn't want to add additional costs to the costs that have already been set aside based on the other project for conduit runs and stuff to that effect.
Yeah, I think we're looking at this month alone, just for the treatment plant, $8,500 ComEd bill. So when I do that times 12, that's $102,000. So I'm trying to get my head around where we're coming up with that number.
So is that both is that just the ComEd bill?
Yeah.
Okay. You still have I think you have the Constellation piece too, or is everything on
That
ComEd?
might be.
Yeah, so it is higher, so,
Yeah.
and again, this is, driving down negatives to the capacity and transmission. So at 130, where you're currently at, if we go to negative 500, now instead of paying 130 at the capacity factor of $333 with the scaling factor of 30 days, getting to the weeds. If we go from 130 to negative 500, now your savings is actually gonna be higher because you're getting the difference between the 130 being down to zero, going negative at the capacity value, which are incorporated in these numbers. So you're getting additional value, which isn't gonna be a one-for-one on your bill versus what it is gonna be in the future.
Okay, other questions? Okay, if you could update the information, we'll get the packet out to.
Absolutely, I
Council.
can definitely do that. Thank you so much.
Thank you. All right, moving on to our reports. There's no attorney report, clerk report.
No report.
All right, no treasurer, no administrator. City department reports under 9, Tony Eberly, EMA.
So I wanted to introduce Don Schroeder, who is my new assistant director for Sandwich EMA. So just wanted to introduce him to everyone. He's been on the team for a while, but now in a different capacity.
Congratulations, I think. All right,
That's all that I have. Any questions?
all right. Thank you, Don, I appreciate that, stepping forward. Okay, thank you, Tony. All right, Chief Cindy's not here. Engineer report, Kurt Detman.
All
All right, just wanted to give some updates. So Pratt Road Bridge, we have our pre-con meeting set for January 28th. We're meeting at District 3, engineer, IDOT staff, and going through, and we'll get more updates as to how the start of Pratt Road Bridge reconstruction will happen. Lead service line, the city has received the additional $40,000 grant for that money, and we're still coordinating exactly, but it looks like the intent, based on a meeting we had with Don Danko, kind of use that to do some inspections inside homes and do assessments and meter replacement, kind of all that together. Now, the meter replacement isn't part of that grant, but the inspection of the homes that can be used for the grant money.
On that note, before I forget, we have the data from the water inventory, or the lead line inventory. Steve was talking about, there was the galvanized. Was that data part of all that when we were talking about that, so we can update the maps?
So I think what we need to do is we need to come up with a plan and talk more in detail about the galvanized portion of it. 'Cause
Yeah.
yes,
But we thought maybe there was some data that you collected, but
we're still checking into that.
okay.
Yes.
All right.
Yep, yep.
I'm sorry I jumped ahead, but.
No, that's
popped into
okay.
my head.
That's okay, yeah, yeah, we just had our meeting on a lot of different water items, and we're definitely gonna get into, into details on some of the galvanized information. The Railroad Street water relocation around Railroad Street plant, those plans are in progress right now. So we'll have an update on the next meeting on February 2nd. Hoping to have some plans kind of set to go, and we can work on coordinating bid documents and timing for that. The wastewater treatment facility, I've got all the as-built drawings. I'm gonna be bringing them to Brad Ead tomorrow. They're massive documents, like 50 pounds worth of stuff, so bringing that in, and we'll have that for city. On development side, Henderson's, they're working on revising their plans. The ComEd charging station, they are finalizing up their permit. They are essentially good to go. We're just waiting on one last little bond piece. And then we're good to go on that. Dollar Tree, they should be getting their building up and ready to go sometime here in late February. And so that's great. Fairwinds, we've heard that ComEd has been out there recently working, so that's good news for getting their streetlights out there. And I know there's a lot of the utilities that are out there getting their infrastructure in there as well. So that's moving along very well. So that's pretty much all I've got.
I did get an email that the antique lights or Main Street should be coming in next month. And Don, I think you mentioned that you think the company is hoping to be in business by March, correct, for Dollar Tree? Well, open's a better term than in business.
Yeah, the grand opening is scheduled for Thursday, March 5th. And they called to get their permits for their signage for their grand opening. And on Fairwinds, so you know, there's 15 houses permitted right now. There's 3 more in the bin that'll be done in the next couple of days. So they're already up to 18 permitted and into the office. So they're moving along at the speed they said they were gonna move along at.
Okay, so the winter slowdown's over. We'll be moving to spring. All right, that is
I have
good
one
news for all of
question.
us. Questions?
Yep. Where are we at on the credit for the well 2 relocation? Because Steve had admitted that the extra that was put into us should have been part of the 308.
So the survey work that has been done for that, that's essentially not being charged. That's part of the 308. So to get an exact amount of what the actual charge is for just that relocate, I mean, there's no survey charge. It's just the plans related to what is different.
Right, but the ask was $24,500.
Well, that wasn't the contract was only 15 for that work.
Okay.
And
so it was presented to us
3,000
at
something.
24,500.
Well, that was with the Plano Interconnect.
So 15,000.
I don't know the exact number offhand, but it was around 15,000. That was the breakout that had everything in it. The survey portion, which was 3,000 to 4,000, that portion is not being charged. And then if there's any crossover on the design portion of it, i.e. probably the connection out front, if that's part of the 308, then some of that design work would be crossover that wouldn't be charged as well.
We would have to think all of it would be crossover, like.
It's not all crossover.
Well, when you.
Everything
put in for
around
a
the building is
308
not.
And the design, to move that well over here, the building has to come down. So it should have been part of the entire project. And why, if it's not, why it isn't, is a mystery. Because it's additional cost, additional cost, additional cost. Typically, when a contractor brings something and says, this is my cost, but your foundation was not included, it's part of the project.
So, to be clear, the additional cost, so this is a separate project. It's a separate plan set. It's a separate bidding. Those are all costs.
Right, but well two, moving with this coming down, had to be part of the project to begin with.
That's fine. That can be part of that, but I'm just saying, the bidding, the plans, putting these things together, that's a separate cost.
Right, but we were just talking about design.
There is some design work that is not part of that. The relocation around the building and all the different valving systems that have to be done for this, that was not part of the original design.
Why? Because the building couldn't have come down without that line moved.
You
Because the
have a
only
li-
thing being treated inside that building is from that pump.
So
from that
you're
well.
saying that the line going around the building was gonna be done that way? I don't know. I don't know that that was the way.
How do you guys not know that? It's the only thing that gets treated inside the building.
No, I'm saying the line relocated outside the building. That I don't know. I'd have to talk with Steve to see if that was the way that design was intended to go for that.
Well, in talking to Steve, when I brought it up, the extra, Steve admitted to us, yes, that should have been part of the 308. You guys will see money.
The survey for sure, yes.
Well, the design has got to be, because the building can't come down considering the only thing that is treated inside that building is that well. So if you guys were not going to design moving that line.
The design
what we're gonna do,
is
just shut the well down?
The plans have to be designed though, still. We have to put plans together that are separate from these overall plans that they're doing. We're not using these plans that they're still working on that are not gonna be done for months. It's a separate
Okay, so
plan
if I
set.
read a book, I'm able to look, I'm here. I can look to chapter 7, which is 6 chapters ahead of where I'm at. That's essentially what this plan of design is. All we're doing is just taking one piece of the book and moving it forward. It's still all part of the book. It is.
Is it
Because
best
well
we just
2
have
had to be
Steve come
rerouted.
and talk about it?
Might have to have Steve, I mean, they're still bidding too. The bidding is a separate bidding. I mean, are we saying that the bidding we're doing for this is the same bidding we're gonna do
We are talking,
later?
we literally were just talking design. And you said you're not sure if that design was part of it.
I didn't say all. I don't know what part of what we're doing is part exactly. That's what we have to find out, what Steve was planning on doing, because they're in the middle of starting
If
this
you guys
process.
weren't planning on rerouting well 2, what we're gonna do, just shut it down? It had to be part of
It
the
might not have
design.
been writing it outside the building, is what I'm getting at.
Well, the building's coming down, where else are we gonna run it?
That's what I have to talk with Steve about.
Okay.
Kurt, there was also a Finance Committee $2,500 bill about the EV location.
There's been 3 charges, so we just didn't know what all those 3 charges entailed. Just because originally when the charging station was brought to council, we were told there was no charge, so we just didn't think that, we didn't think there'd be charges for,
Just, what was the engineer
engineering.
for, right? We
Yeah.
need to understand.
yeah, we just wanted to know what all that entailed.
All the engineering plan review and trying to get their design that just did not work. We coordinated with their engineer, the ComEd's engineer, many, many times, countless times, trying to get this design to work that just did not work. Yeah.
Was that design pavement, ADA, and storm, or?
They were trying to put like trench drains and daylighting structures in the middle of the road. Things weren't ADA compliant. They were putting ramps in the middle of the sidewalk. It was all these different things they were trying to do that just did not really work very well.
Okay, thanks.
Okay. Any other questions from the committee members? Okay, all right. Any other questions for Kurt? All right, thank you. Don, do you have anything else under economic development? Okay. All right, under unfinished business, we've had an ongoing conversation about potential fees and permits for council to consider. That would be effective May 1st, 2026. Assume everybody had a chance to think about some of those proposals from our city administrator. Are there any other fees that council would like to bring forward that we should consider or add to our list as we try to finalize that? Okay. Well, if we could get anything else in that comes to mind by the end of the month, then we'll try to get for the February 2nd, more final list of what those look like, so we can decide what direction we want to go, plus or minus, and then get those voted for the end of February. And the key part of that is for anything that the clerk would have to issue the permits for throughout the application process, so we can have proper time for notification of any potential change. All right, so the other item that we have is some discussion about the possible hire for the new city attorney and legal counsel. So we did go through a process. We do have closed session on the next meeting. I do see where it's on there. Probably should have been on this one, but it wasn't set up that way. What we could do is either you could request to go into closed session under this meeting, or we could simply amend the agenda on the next meeting and move it up. Before we approve the agenda, you can make the alteration, and then we could go discuss that. One of the items will have no action, and the other item will have action when the council comes out, as stated on the agenda already, which would be a consideration of new legal counsel. So we'd really just wait till we have the second meeting, and then we can move that up in the agenda so we can go to closed session and come out before we would vote.
I'd like to do closed session during this meeting, to be honest with you.
Okay. I did not see it on the agenda, and,
It is not on the agenda.
yep. Why don't we place
Say
it
it
at,
under your name.
yeah, we could just add that under report of older persons. I'll let whoever wants to go last give their report, and then you could request that, and we'll move into that under the proper areas under 2C. Okay, vacancy of the treasurer. So one of the pieces that I have to finalize is that when a resignation occurs like that, there's a process they have to go through to essentially declare it vacated. That's the resolution that you'll be voting on tonight. It's just a simple formality of the code, the Illinois compiled statute. So I did speak with IML about that, and they gave the advice that that's how we should proceed because it was an elected position. The ones before were appointed, so those are, I think, held a little differently, but that's on the agenda for you to consider. Any questions about that resolution will be coming up in the next meeting? I'd say it's more housekeeping.
Ultimately, I've talked to a couple people about this. What I'd like to see us do is wait until we actually have an attorney that we can ask questions to as city council, so we know, us personally, we're not gonna get ourselves into any legal issues if we do anything like that.
To pass the resolution for that? That's fine. That came right out of the code, though. The
That's fine,
statute.
but I'd like to talk to an attorney and say, hey, if we do this, where are we at with it?
Yeah, we can just table it to the next meeting.
That's fine.
Okay. All right, new business planning commission recommendations. Don, do you want to cover any of those or anyone else?
We needed to call a plan commission meeting for the Wodo project to rezone the property. So there were some other things pending, so we thought we'd take care of those two. I think we had 4 items on the agenda. So the zoning map amendment went from B3 to R4 for 55 plus residential development is recommended by the plan commission. They were unanimous on that. Then there was discussion about when a property comes into the city, more likely zoned ag, what does it come in, and then what do we have to do? So what we're talking about is if it comes in from agricultural district and becomes an R1 situation, At the time of annexation, we need to remove that 40-acre requirement for farm residences. That's part of the county's code, not ours, and it was added on. And what it also means is that we would not, if they came in ag to R1, there'd be no need for a plan commission hearing. If they do something else, then there'd have to be a plan commission hearing. So that was taken care of. And then we finally, hopefully, got the runaway protection zone standards changed officially. And we can move forward with that and notifying the owner of the property across the street so he can market it appropriately.
Okay, anything else, Don?
Not on the zoning.
Okay, any questions on that item that went before the commission? All right. All right, you also have the solar, anything else you want to add on that?
Do you want me to do that presentation or pass it off to another night, Mayor?
We're going to make changes to that. I didn't realize it didn't go out to the council. I just had mine printed on my desk.
No, not this one, the second one, the one on
Oh,
the.
yeah,
on
yeah, I mean, you can discuss that.
the- all right.
It's a committee
So-
whole, so they can see it for the first time and see what you're recommending.
Yep. So, the mayor asked me some time ago to start looking at ways to use revenue or use the solar to gain revenue. What I do here, Tony?
Serial down. Yep. There you go.
So we started to talk about that 12.2 acres detention pond off of Center Street there, and what could we do with solar there? So I asked some of my cohorts in the business, and the Economic Development Director in Montgomery had me talk to Synergy, this company called Synergy, and they're doing it with Synergy. They're taking some city property and making it solar. They're taking some 4 and 5 acre plots and making them solar, and they're planning to do more. In essence, we're leasing them the land. So Synergy will own and finance the project. We have no cost in it. In addition, we are to receive a 20% discount on our kilowatt usage on all our ComEd bills for all our facilities. Synergy, it'll take 18 to 24 months to have them study it. Same things like Sean was talking about, talking to ComEd, making sure it's available to be entered into the grid, and they'll pay a fee to hold the lease on the properties for up to that time while they do the design and construction. They pay for all fencing, vegetation, and in addition, under these state programs, each resident who qualifies under the state income guidelines will also receive a monthly discount for 20% discount on their kilowatts usage on their ComEd bills. So it gets passed on, passed on, passed on. So here's how it works. Mayor had me do the detention pond, and of course I expanded the search a little bit just to play with some numbers, but that detention pond on Center Street is approximately 12.2 acres. And I'll have a maps for you here in a minute. There's a 2.75 separate parcel to it that runs north and south. That was probably the street right away. It's 80 feet wide. That runs between the residence and that detention pond parcel. That could remain empty, or it actually could go into the project, but I left it empty, so it could be an additional buffer to the homes to the east. I took the liberty of throwing in 20 acres of the 24 acre parcel along the railroad at Fairwinds. That could be part of the project. The land lease rate from Synergy is 30% more than the farm income that we receive for farming it. And then the same parcel that we were just talking about with Sean, in case we didn't go that route, there's, I figured out it's about 4.79 acres there on the west side of those ponds. Talk to Brad, if we don't go this way, go that way, he's okay. Farmland rental for solar use, and I've been deep into this for the last 9 months, like with the Illinois Finance Authority and all this. The average range in the state of Illinois for a solar company to lease farmland is anywhere from $450 to $2,450 per acre. That's what it is statewide, and that's throwing in everybody and averaging it out. Regional cities have achieved up to $2,750 an acre with a 2% COLA or no COLA at all. A lot of them have no COLAs, which surprised me. After talking back and forth with Synergy, I told them we wouldn't do anything for less than 3,000 and a 3% COLA. And they agreed. That 12.2, talking to Nick and doing some calculations, mowing and maintaining that 12.2 acre detention pond site is an expense to the city, and it's over $26,000 annually for us to go out there and mow it. And the 24-year forecast will provide a pledge of revenue to secure, if you wanted to go this route, just something I think about, secure a $3 million public utility bond to pay for the critical water repair needs, you know, and IRVDA could handle that. That's the Upper Illinois River Valley Development Authority, who handles bonding for the state. That's just one source. So there's the outline of that pond. That's your 12.2. And that second slide is to show you the parcels next to it. That long narrow piece there was probably the street that was platted at one time. So that would be an additional area to buffer the residents, or we could incorporate that into the project too. And then that's the same site we just saw on the other map, just to the left there of the ponds. And then you know where the railroad site is there. If we just took the top 20 acres, left 4 acres along the rail, in case something comes up at the railroad, we would not be, we would not have to say no to them. And here's just the numbers that I ran. That 12.2 detention, retention pond over 20 years would bring us close to $1 million. The 4.9 acres would bring us approximately $385,000. And that 20 acre of the 24 acre railroad site has a potential to bring us about 1.6. This is just leasing. It's our property. They're responsible for it. They maintain it and all of that through the time. And then there's a potential there, if you maxed out those 3 parcels, about 2.9, almost $3 million over a 20-year period. That could be a revenue source to fund the water repairs. That's just a project Mayor gave me. I wanted to show you the numbers, and if you can think of other city parcels, I mean, I could definitely research that. I did mention the Synergy Thursday. Told them finally getting to present to the council, put it in front of you to consider. And I was talking to Sean that day about batteries, and I mentioned batteries, and they said, oh, you know, that kind of, I said, well, that changes the formula. So they're coming out here on Wednesday. They're out of California, but they're making their tour of their Illinois projects, and they're gonna be in Montgomery in the morning, and then they're gonna come out to us. Just talk about this. If you have questions, I can bring it to them. I'm gonna talk about the battery storage. If they add that, what's our share in that? There's gotta be a piece for us in there. But again, it's our property. Never changes hands, just a lease arrangement.
Okay, questions for Don on any of the proposed solar locations?
I have a question, so this might be more for Kurt too. With the detention basin, gotta be an offset of whatever
They have to
goes in there,
They
so
have to keep the solar panels out of the floodplain,
out of the floodplain,
so they'd be mounted a little higher.
right? But the displacement of whatever 4, 6-inch column that's in there, you start adding all those columns up, they're gonna eat up available square footage or volume of that detention basin. So would there be a possibility of needing to increase that or downsize it? Has that been factored into the calculations?
No, and we don't own anything more going north, but we own that 2.75 on the side.
Right.
So if we needed 2.75,
So am I right, Kurt? I mean, we would have to calculate that into the equation to make sure that whatever is being occupied space-wise doesn't deplete the overall volume capacity.
Yeah, I think the first thing about that detention pond is digging into the calculations, because I'm not completely familiar with how that's being utilized. I know there's a lot of flow coming from the north, from the Fairwind subdivision. It gets down in there and that whole area. So whatever that high water level is, and, you know, I'd have to dig into what the as-built plans were, where the high water level is. I don't know how their solar stuff would go inside of that pond, and if it's, you know, gonna be able to stay out of that depth of water wherever they're gonna put it. That's the big thing, and obviously, any area they're gonna displace would be a negative effect on that, for sure. And I don't know how that's gonna affect, you know, sure, if it's a minimal amount, if that volume's gonna change the high water level. Now you're talking about the dynamics of the pond and how it works. So it's a tricky situation, for sure.
Well, the other question I would have is like for the ag property there's gotta be drain tiles, right? Are those gonna get disrupted and destroyed?
You talking about the 20 acre near the
Right.
railroad stuff?
Is there any-
Yeah, that,
I mean,
the
we
ag
can't-
property, well,
Yeah,
the detention pond's not gonna have drain tiles.
Right.
Shouldn't have drain tiles. If it does, I'd be surprised. The railroad property, since it's an ag property, it would be something good to get checked out. Those are usually, getting a drain tile study done on that is not a super expensive cost, just to know where they are. And what you could do is you could eliminate those drain tiles in certain areas of the northern half, that 20 acres, and get away with, you know, probably doing that if they're gonna change it into an unfarmable area.
yeah, because once you, I mean, you know, farmers 100 years ago figured out how to get water so they can keep growing their crops, right? So
well,
we can't-
yeah,
we can't
yeah.
disturb it.
Yeah, I mean, I've run into drain tiles in my career so many times, and you run into, sometimes they're working, sometimes they're not, they're broken, they're clay, different sizes, so a lot of times I feel like these drain tiles, depending on the age of them and size of them, that they're not functioning the greatest. I mean, they get clogged up with sediment too, so it depends on how often, you know, the farmer's in there, and if he's maintaining these things or changing these things out and updating them. So, like I said, drain tile study is the best way to find out about that.
I mean, I'm personally like, I like where you're able to potentially utilize something that's non-buildable for another purpose. So I like that flexibility. Kind of have a hardship of taking the farm ground that we could potentially sell for future development and growth potential, and it's locked up there for 20 years. Now you have 20 years that we can't sell it. But at a gain of 1.6, what's the actual farm ground worth? You know, if a developer comes in, it's worth a lot more than that, so. I like the options, though.
Yeah, it was basically to do something instead of spending money to mow it every time. So it needs to be a ball field, a soccer place, something, and just, most of the time they're dry, and all we do is pay to mow them, so we do need to find an alternative use, whether it's for community good or it's some way to generate revenue, so. Okay, we wanted to get that out just to get some initial feedback. All right, anything else, Don?
No.
Okay. Item C, every year annually, we have to contract for sludge hauling with our wastewater treatment center. Our superintendent, Mr. Ead, has prepared a memo recommending that the council approve next year's agreement to continue on with Stewart Spreading. Currently, for 2025, we pay $32.98 per cubic yard of biosolids, and the recommendation is to accept the increase to $33.95, or a cost of 0.96 per cubic yard. It's just about a 3% increase over the prior year, which is typically right around the CPI. So that recommendation is coming to council, and they haul our sludge off for us to take care of that. We've done that every year annually as a city for as far back as I can remember. So questions on the contract? I'll just simply be authorizing myself to sign that and renew it with that particular company.
Can you just tell me the numbers again?
Yeah, sure. The memo says the 2025 rate was $32.98 per cubic yard of biosolid. They're recommending an increase based upon CPI to the new rate for this contract of $33.95 per cubic yard.
Thank you.
Yep.
Mayor, did we go out for competitive bids on this? Because this does exceed the 25,000, does it not?
We have done competitive bids in years prior, and we've had nobody inquire about bidding on this particular project.
I disagree with that. We have had other local vendors that have put in, they just haven't been able to beat that price.
Which is how bidding works.
Right, but at least we bid it, at least we know that we have the competitive bid process taking place. I appreciate the fact, however, when we're holding the line for one group to go out for bid on certain things, and we're not holding the other groups to go out for bid on certain things, that's kind of negating the purchasing policy that we put together a few years ago. So I would like to see this go out for a bid. It could go out for, you know, not to exceed 24,999 and then come back, or they could go out for a formal bid where it sits out there for 15 days.
Well, when
and-
you put the bid out, you don't put the stipulation what they can or cannot exceed, you just put the bid
No, I'm
out.
saying there's two ways you can do it. You could go out for quotes, you could go get quotes for up to 24,999.
Right.
Right? And that could be done, 3 phone calls could be made to 3 local vendors and get the pricing. The problem is that you're probably gonna exceed it 24,900. So the other option is to go out and do a formal bid, and then we could write it for a multiple year per se as well to probably lock in on better pricing, and then we know what our next few years are going to be, so we can put that into the budget and hold our numbers true.
Okay, it's a recommendation from staff, I'll take it back and say you want to bid it, so.
Well,
It's just more work for them, I don't know that it's gonna exceed 25,000. Is that what the budget says?
they're only gonna haul out 736 cubic yards of sludge next year,
I don't know about the haul out.
so what can you put in a semi there, Adam? 12 yards? I don't know the numbers.
I don't know how often they haul it off either, sometimes
Our
it sits in
sludge,
the
I have to
drying
ask
beds.
Brad.
Yeah, I mean, we hold the chief to go get bids on things.
For a
and
$67,000 car.
That's a competitively bid product though, right there. It's already done for him. This is not something that's done. This has been a reoccurring annual deal. I know that Ag Tech used to do it, and then Stewart Spreading came in and undercut it, and then I got a phone call afterwards, why didn't you at least ask us about the price again?
Fred, in my
So-
world, if somebody wants to bid, they can notify the municipality or the school or the township that they want to bid. Typically, the law says you don't have to rebid it unless there's a inquiry. So if Ag Tech wanted to bid, why didn't they not call me?
Our purchasing guidelines say that if we know we are gonna be expensing greater than $25,000, we need to bid it.
Okay, we'll ask them
But
to.
was that, I don't wanna create a bigger issue, but that was what we
Has it-
set forth as a council, was it not? We
We
were having issues
approved the
with
same thing last year and we didn't bid it, and we approved it the year before and we did bid it.
And I pushed back again.
Okay, fine, you know what, it can go to bid, it'll just take more work from the staff, and I certainly hope
can-
Ag Tech bids and
It could be,
they can
it
get
could be a
and
real
then-
simple one, and somebody might not bid it, but do it for a 3-year time frame, and at least that way, then you have 3 years of not having to even do anything other than accept the price differential.
We have sludge hauling for the 25, 26 at 45,000.
How much?
45,000.
Okay,
Thank you.
all right. Alderman Arnett.
For my report, I got a couple things. First, I'd like to request executive for the attorney. Move it from second meeting to first meeting.
If we're gonna go in closed session, let's just do them all. If not, then we gotta go back in for,
That works for me, it's fine. And then also, second thing, I want to clarify something. At the last meeting, we talked about 50/50 lines and we had a vote. Well, it was, essentially was not voted down. WSPY had reported that Sandwich City Council voted down 50/50 program, which we did not do. 50/50 program is still on the books. In order for it to be voted down, we have to repeal, we have to make a motion, call the previous 50/50 up and squash it, which was not done. The only thing that was done is talking about the 1 year, 2 year, 5 year, however long the payment plan would be to repay it. The program is still in place, 50/50. Another thing I'd like to see is, I know over the holidays, we had some of our guys take some time off, and yes, our guys do deserve some time off. What I'd like to see, if we come to some downtime with our employees on different projects. I'd like to see us start being proactive and somehow us calling these homeowners where we have proposed or possible lead lines and trying to get our guys inside these homes to take a look at these lines and better updating our list. Because right now, it's just spitballing, essentially. We were told 70, now possibly 600. So I'd like to see us as a city starting to get a lot more proactive on this lead line deal. And that's what I got.
Okay, thank you. Alderman Chun,
I don't have anything right now.
Alderman Danko.
Yeah, I have a report from our meeting that we had on the 13th, last Tuesday, regarding water. It was myself, Jimmy, who you just met, Jeff, Steve, Kurt, Brad, Nick, and the mayor was also on the phone. And we had a pretty good agenda. It was a good 3-hour meeting. And we basically we did talk about well 2, and we already kind of talked a little bit about this, and we're going to get an update on the second with the plans, because that's our number 1 priority, is get well 2 over to the Railroad Street and tie it into the raw water line. We got to do it, because we don't know where, we just got to do it, because we're not going to spend any more money on that building, and this safeguards our supply. The other thing that came up is probably something that Jeff was starting on, talking with Plano for the interconnect and what that would entail. I think it's a good common sense as communities helping each other. We're only talking about 250 feet of pipe, if I remember right. That would be a 50-50 split, but I don't want to say anything more because Jeff was actually dealing with the administrator in Plano, okay? We did talk about the current water treatment plant project, decommissioning that, moving all operations to Clark. There's the engineering contract, the checking in on funding. That application has to be in on March 31st. Estimates are getting all that work done in more detail. We could be looking at about 4.2 million. So we have to see what kind of funding's available. It'd be nice if we can start this next year. I mean, it's gonna take, it wouldn't be complete till the end of 2028. So this is a long-term, this is a big deal to get that all taken care of. The other thing we did spend a lot of time on, and there's gonna be a meeting set up with Brad and Jimmy, with Brad from Universal, so we can relook at the meter replacement. We have to treat this as a business, and any good business, we gotta secure our revenue first. We're gonna have to do it. And that might dovetail into, we replace that meter, we can get an accurate count, as best as we can, on what that service is in that home. We're getting almost 2 for 1. We did talk about it, and there was some data that Steve was looking into. We might get the data that was collected regarding lead and galvanized. Tell me that data might be there, and he's looking into that, right? So we can get a better count, because we got to know how many lines are we actually dealing with. So I'm looking forward to see what he comes up with that. The other thing we talked about was the water tower. We have a 300,000 gallon tank water tower, and we have another 750,000 over at Duvik. And at one time, it was told to me when they were painting the 300,000 and ran off of Duvik, seemed like the water pressure increased. I don't know if we're getting more plaints on water pressure over like Fairwinds. But it also, we were looking at maybe an altitude sensor that once this was full, and then it would force more water to go over the 750 gallon tank. But then, if we do that, in which we have to look at this, take a step back, we could be increasing our PSI to over 80, and we only should be at 40. So that could cause more problems than what we're trying to solve. But during that whole conversation, the sensors, the transducer sensors that measure and calculates the water, they never been calculated, or I should say, checked for at least 3 years. And we don't know when the last time that was done. So I did ask Jimmy, our water superintendent, what do you need to tweak and test and program these sensors? And he's looking at equipment, but now's a good time to see if we can get that in the budget. So, and it could be $15,000, but it's something that should be done every year, and it hasn't been done at least 3 that we know of. So we might find that we have a bad transducer, not properly sending the right signals, and we're not getting the best capacity out of our towers until we know this test. So that's where we're at on that. We covered that. Mayor, I think that's all I have right now.
Okay, thank you, Don. I agree, that was a good, productive meeting for us. All right, Alderwoman Erickson?
I just want to point out that I talked with Chief Sunny about a week ago, I think it was, for our meeting, and we talked about the generator over there, which has come up every time during budget. But now I believe that we had budgeted 100,000, and now I believe he says it's at 117 to fix it, or to get a new one, I'm sorry. And then I know that there was somebody that had put in for the cleaning service over there, and it was under what we'd have to do for contractual and bidding. But I don't know, Mayor, were you wanting to put that out for bid? Is that what you had suggested to him?
I think someone came to one of our meetings and asked if we would put it out for bid, because they might want to consider it, so my recommendation to the chief is just to put it out there and see if anybody else did. We had a current vendor that does the service for us, and I just said it'd probably be best if we just put it out, so the current and the other individual could put it out at the same time, just to put it out there and then close it and then make a selection.
Okay. And then the other question I have is, or concern I should say, is I brought it to Jeff's attention before. I've talked to Adam about this. He actually met me over there, over on Castle Street, and between 2nd and 3rd. There are trees that ComEd had cut. Well, they third-partied it. They cut them all goofy, just around or whatever, the wires. And there's 2 residents that it affects right now. And one good snowstorm, one good ice storm, those are gonna come down on their houses. I suggest that we cut them. Not cut just a little bit, branch here or there, cut them down, just be done. Cut them down, that'll save us liability, it'll save them from having to do anything. I think we should just ask that they be cut down.
I did see ComEd's response. It was a ComEd response.
Yeah.
Do you want to move that to maybe with Matt, with Superintendent of Streets?
I was gonna ask you, where are they located again? I'll go
It's
look at
between
them.
2nd and 3rd Street on
Castle.
Castle.
All right, thank you.
You're welcome.
I'm sure we have funds in the forestry to take care of that, but yeah, I did see that response. Okay, anything else?
No, thank you.
All right, Alderwoman Edmond,
Nothing right now, thank you.
Alderman Ketchum,
Nothing at the moment, thank you.
Alderman Kraybrink.
Yeah, so I've spoken with most of you about this Alliant leadership proposal for the strategic planning and the SWOT analysis for the city, to work with all the city departments as well as us as a council. The fee is under $10,000. I'm trying to work with them on narrowing that down a little bit more. I just wanted to get a consensus, given the dollar amount that we have there. It really can be passed off to Jeff for consideration. And I just wanted to see if anybody had any hardship with making that happen, so we can get this going to help blend it in with our budgeting process for the upcoming fiscal year.
So want to bid that?
It's under $25,000, sir, and it's
So what?
professional services.
So, there's maybe other people.
I
wanna
tried
put in-
another company, but I wasn't getting a phone call back.
I think Jeff wanted to look at IML too. I don't know, I've never used IML, but I know he brought that up from conference, whoever went to conference.
Yeah, they said they could help out with certain things, but not everything.
I'm not opposed to any of these services. I'm just saying, I know that Jeff had a different one. I don't care who
Yeah,
you go
I'm
with.
fine. Well, what we'll do is we'll wait for Jeff then to get back. We've talked about this a couple times now, and there hasn't been any other conversation other than this, but I would like to try to get something moving because I think it will definitely tie into our budget process, and help give us some guidance on where we need to go.
Yeah, I think you just need to pick which avenue you want to go with.
Yeah. And then the other thing that I have is I know that there was a request to go into closed session to talk about the attorney's report. However, I do not think that that falls into the governance of going into the closed session.
I would question if this is the right meeting. I would just change it on your next agenda.
But I don't think it qualifies to go into closed session because it's not legal matters. It's not pending legal, it's a contract. So I think it has to be discussed in open forum. We're not talking about a specific person, entity, we're not talking about, pending
So
litigation.
here's what I think it's at. 2C1, the appointment, employment, compensation, discipline, performance, or dismissal of specific employees of a public body or legal counsel for the public body, including hearing testimony on a complaint lodged against an employee of the public body or against the legal counsel of public body determines validity.
Yeah, I think that deals with discipline of, not the hiring of. So I honestly don't think that, I don't even think it falls into the security one either.
I don't know about that either. I question that as well.
I just don't want to get into a situation where we go into closed session, we're talking about proposals, and proposals should be talked about in the open. Unless you have a workshop and/or if you have a 2x2 or something like that.
I just see it on the first clause, appointment, employment, compensation, discipline, performance, or dismissal of specific employees of public or legal counsel for the public body. Then it says, including a complaint against the body or its legal counsel.
I understand if it's a dismissal of, but not hiring of.
At the beginning of that, it does say appointment, though.
Yeah, and this process is like all the other ones. I make a appointment and recommendation to council, and the council would approve it, just like we do every May 1st with all the other positions. I have no problem either way. I have no issue discussing the process.
I just
or-
wanted to bring it up, that's all.
Yeah. Well, we don't have legal counsel here, so I can't ask that question, so. I mean, I could tell you my reasoning, if that will help you. and you- Well, we'll need somebody.
Well, I think there needs to be, headway made on this aspect of the vacancy, so.
I mean, I certainly can tell you what I look for. I mean, I gave all of you a rubric and asked you to come evaluate them, which we did. I mean, for the most part, I looked at the legal team and I looked at their experience. So I wanted to know how strong were they in the area of municipal law and the other areas that we might need them. I looked at their team support and the size of the firm and the depth of the firm. So in most cases, I wanted to make sure that there's at least one or two attorneys that can respond to a need that we have. Sometimes they're in court. We need someone else to possibly get back to an opinion, or they're off work like everybody else likes to be. So I looked to see if they have a paralegal or someone else that would support us. I also looked at some of the clients that they've had and some of the cases that they may have been involved in. I weighed those against what we've currently been dealing with and what I see us having to deal with in the future. There are probably a few things coming up that some of them fit better than other firms. I looked at everything else, like their cost per hour, what they'd be willing to give us on a retainer. And then I also sent them all a test that asked them to respond to one of my questions to see how long it'd take for all of them to respond. And I thought 5 of the 6 got back in a timely manner. I know we're all busy people. And one of them didn't provide the information I added until a couple days later. And of the 6 firms, 5 attorneys from those firms returned a call to me, and the other one was the office manager. So I kind of look at that too to see who can respond and what time it takes, because sometimes we do have some pending issues that we need to make sure that we go through. And then what it will look like in the future is that whoever we select, and I made a recommendation, as you can see on the agenda, is making sure that the current firm has a smooth transition with the new firm so we can carry all those over. They'll have to meet and discuss any cases or issues or items that we have in the works that they can carry over. So I did that with Alderman Robinson, and my thinking is that both him and I have been aldermen, and both him and I have been a mayor, and we both see some things and discussions that you probably aren't involved in, that we have to decide, do we proceed or do we not? Or do we need to get legal counsel or do we not? And so I sat down with Rich for probably about an hour. We went through all of your considerations as well as our own. We also asked our administrator to weigh in on that, and we looked at all the areas of municipal law that we deal with. There, quite frankly, is probably 25 or 30 areas of law that we deal with. And we looked at all of those things and felt, what would be the best fit for us. I don't know if they're gonna be the right law firm. That's what happens when you hire anybody that you sign a contract with. You just assume that you've done your due diligence and that they're gonna perform in good faith and that you'll have a good working relationship. And that's what we do. And there's always a option in those agreements that you can typically get out of those, or like I said, it comes before council every year for the appointment. I mean, I would prefer that we not appoint them and then unappoint them May 1st, because we need a little time frame to work with them, to let them learn about how we work. I've never denied counsel from calling our legal counsel. I've always, we do have bills, and every time we call them, it costs money. And Rich and I had a conversation that we're gonna send a memo out, and it'll go to everybody, you, to be mindful of how much our legal bills cost us. I know sometimes our staff calls, that could be a superintendent. Don, you've had conversations with legal, and usually they get permission or direction from us to call them. But I think when I'm at work, I watch the clock when I'm on the phone with the attorney because I know how billable hours work. I think we all have to be mindful of that, especially going forward, of how much either Denise needs, or I need, or Jeff needs. And I think going forward, we just have to be a little more mindful of the time we have when we're on the phone. It's not a conversation with them, it's getting them to take care of our business and move forward. So that was my process. When I was on the city council, I went through 2 law firms. We had an attorney, and the attorney resigned from the position. We had to go hire another one. And when Rich was here, he had that next attorney, and I was off the council, and they had to go find another one. So I think both him and I have been through the process of trying to figure out, I don't go find an attorney for me. I find an attorney that I think meets the needs of the city of Sandwich and its citizens as we have some of these matters coming before us. And I think this law firm has some strong members that are partners with their experience to handle those different areas that we need. One of the attorneys has an engineering degree. I thought that might be very helpful for us. No offense, Kurt, but sometimes when we're trying to get a legal document done and someone speaks the same language, sometimes we come to a better understanding of what that document has to say. The other one has experience litigation and dealing with some of those legal cases and navigating the process of the legal system. The other one was actually on the other side of a deal for us, right? I had to speak through our attorney and him with his client, and that was very different, right? And so that wasn't like my client, that was, them bringing somebody for us, and I had to deal across the table with this individual. I thought he was respectful, thought he was mindful of the project and who he represented, and so I looked at all those things. There were a lot of good law firms, do not get me wrong. Do not have me wrong in this whole process, but there are some that specifically dealt with other areas of law that we don't deal with, or specific parts of government. Schools, townships, and some of them had a very strong background in municipal government, and some of them did not. So that was my reasons for selecting this firm. I hope I'm right, okay? I mean, like I said, I don't get to grill them and interview them. I just have to look at what they provide and have some follow-up questions, and I feel comfortable with the recommendation. So Fred, we were under you for the community whole.
That's all I had,
your
sir.
report.
That's all I had, sir.
Okay, Alderman Robinson's not here, so do we feel that addressed all the questions of the process? And it comes down to me, like, every year, I don't go through everything the law firm's done. I just simply say, this is the law firm, this is the individual, this is the engineering firm, this is the people that we should engage doing business with for the year. That's the process.
Okay, if we're backing this back up to the whole attorney deal, I printed some things out. I always look into things and read. So the law firm that was suggested, Griffin Williams, off a site called lawcrossing.com, they talk about the law firm at Griffin Williams. The core practice areas include business law, real estate law, estate planning, and civil litigation in both state and federal courts. That is their main areas. It didn't talk about municipal law at all. It goes into practice areas. You guys are everyone's more than welcome to look at this. Practice areas off the same law site, law crossing, and municipal law wasn't listed. Then I went to members of Geneva Chamber of Commerce, which they're members of, and under their own letterhead, it says "About Us." Law office concentrating and representing the needs of businesses and individuals. We handle corporate and business matters, employment, and estate planning and real estate, none of which says municipal law. We did have two law firms that I quite liked and I was very impressed with. One was Kleinthorpe and Jenkins. When you go to Kleinthorpe and Jenkins' website, their About Us states, for 90 years, we've represented more local governments in Illinois than any other law firm, municipal law.
I've been across the table from that too. I have no problem with the law firm.
Okay, I'm just, for council, for people that haven't looked it up and read it, I'm pointing things out.
But I will say for the first one with Griffin Williams, their very first client is the city of St. Charles. So I don't know how you'd say they're not municipal law if the letter
I'm
recommendation.
just going off their own, this is what they put out there.
I don't care what other people put out. I care what they submitted and what we reviewed. I mean,
Say,
I don't
didn't
know
put
who
it
wrote
out
that
there.
opinion.
This is their own writing.
I looked at the packet that they already work in municipal law.
Right, well, I came up to City Hall this afternoon because I wanted to reread the packet, see if there was anything that I had missed, but the packet wasn't available to be read.
That's because I said they'd be available and then I would take those back. They were in my office.
Right, but
Could have called me.
we were coming in to vote today, and I just wanted to come up.
I was in
and
at 3
cross
o'clock.
T's, dot I's.
3:30 maybe?
So I'll go back to, the other one I was just talking about. When you go to another section of the website, Kleinthorpe Jenkins, municipal law, one of their main areas of practice. And when you look at everything they do, labor, employment law, liquor law, election law, litigation, property issues, tax, zoning, finance, bidding, contract, they do everything that we've been doing the last several years.
Yeah, it easily could have been them. Alderman Robinson felt like the firm that we recommended. He's worked with them in some capacity and he's very comfortable with
I
them.
know,
I wish he was here.
I talked to Rich for quite a while today.
Yeah.
It's because I wanted to find out where he was at with it. And reason I wanted to go into Zec, I want to see where these other groups listed on our list. Because I know, me personally, the group that was suggested was rather low on my list, just due to looking things up and municipal law not being first and foremost in what they had to be presented. As to where some of these other law firms, municipal law was it was right up there, right front and center in front of you. Another one was, so KJT Law, the attorney that said he would be representing us, Carmen Forte Jr., writing his overview, councils in a Illinois municipality law. That's the first sentence in his bio. Another firm that we had that was impressive was the Otasin Denolfo Hasselberg. When you read their bio, it comes up, they are dedicated to serving those who serve others, municipalities and other local governments. It's right up there in front of you. That's their own writing, just like the other person put out about theirs. They put municipal law right up in front.
Yeah, that was the firm that took the longest to get back to me.
It wasn't? Okay, well,
Nothing against them as a firm, that's one of my criteria, right?
Does Griffin Williams, who else do they represent besides St. Charles?
I'd have to go look it up.
Okay.
Do they do any school districts?
I have no idea. I'm sure they do. A couple of them are very strong in school districts that apply.
I know that they also, just so everybody knows, that they did represent a town for a data center. And I know that's a big thing. So I want to make sure everybody knows that too. The other thing I wanted to know is, like, when it came to you appointing a chief, we got to kind of interview the top two. Is there a reason why we're not able to do the top two or top three for these?
Well, for the chief of police, we actually hired a firm to do all that for us. They did all the testing, and the police commission was part of that.
Okay, so is there a reason why we can't talk to these law firms? I mean,
If you'd like to, we won't be without legal
beneficial for all of
counsel.
us to see. I mean, like, you can see all this on paper, what people are great about, but you get somebody that comes in, we're gonna be like, that is just not gonna be a fit for us. You know what I mean? Regardless of what it says in their paperwork. I think we need to get a feel for these people, what they're gonna be. We need to be able to hear them, what they want to do, what they think direction we should be able to go in, and this and that and the other. Not saying it's gonna take 4 hours to talk to them, brief, in and out, like we did with Chief and the other gentleman that came. I mean, what is council thinking? Do you guys think that we should be able to talk to these people, or is?
Well, I thought the whole process that we were doing, we were gonna try to narrow it down to the top three, and that's what my impression was, that we were gonna interview the top three, unless I misunderstood something.
Well, the chief is a little different, right? The chief is an employee, so when you look at 2C1, you can certainly look at that as a process to employ somebody. We're not employing the law firm, we're simply appointing them to be our legal counsel. And my experience was when we went through the other attorneys, I don't remember maybe Rich has a different recollection, but I don't remember interviewing them. They simply just came before council and we reviewed their credentials and we decided if we wanted to have them as legal counsel or not.
I mean, could we maybe call a special session and have top two firms come and?
I don't know how that'd work. I'd have to get legal advice how we would actually hold that or do that.
Would anybody else be interested in that, or was it just me?
no, I'd love to talk to him, because obviously, when I looked up things on Griffin Williams, municipality law wasn't the first thing that came up. It just wasn't. As to where the other firms, and I'm sorry, the one took a little while to get back with you, that it shouldn't happen that way. But the other two, municipal law was the very first and foremost thing you saw on their site. And
Anybody else?
that makes me feel a lot more confident when we are a municipality looking for a lawyer. And when you go to their site, municipal law is the first thing right out there in front of you.
Agreed.
Well, just so you know, Mr. Williams was right there in that seat a while back. He represented Phase 4. You got to meet Mr. Williams. He actually was the attorney.
Yeah, and that's where I remembered him from.
So you've actually heard him come speak about the annexation agreement with Phase 4 at Fairwind and
That was
advocate for
probably
that in his
the
client.
best put-together proposal. It all flowed very
Mr.
nicely.
Forte, I sat across the table from him at another deal, and so I'm familiar with him. He's a good attorney. And the other one represents me in my day job, and I'm very familiar with that law firm. But I thought they were too heavy in school districts.
Which other one?
Robin Schwartz, a well-known firm. And the other one, you want to look at, two of the people that are in other law firms work for the other law firm, if you read through everybody's bio. Which made me wonder, is that a firm where people start at and go someplace else? Sometimes firms are too big. Did my homework.
Or they have that skill set that individual's looking to obtain and then start their own, you know.
Yeah,
so-
true, or go partner someplace
Yeah.
else because there's not a partner opportunity. And one of them seemed like they were the low one at everything, and I didn't know what that meant, right? That typically, if there's an outlier, you look at those, and usually that tells you something. When the rest are kind of in that same range, then you get a feeling that that's probably the going rate.
I like that you put them through a test. I think that says a lot.
Well, it's worth a shot, see what they did, because
I've had excellent service with that law firm, so.
Yeah. I mean, I think when 5 out of 6 get back to you right away, I think that says a good thing about people that are in the legal profession.
I just want to say, I'm not saying I don't want them. I'm just saying why we don't talk to the top two. I don't know. That's
I'd
just
love
my
to talk
thought.
to the top two, to be honest with you, and I don't mind doing a special session to do it. Because I know we need to get this done, we need legal for this city, because
Yeah, I mean, I don't understand, like, what's so hard about getting a hold of me sometimes? Alderwoman Inman, you get a hold of me, right? I respond to you, right? You've asked me, we've kind of probably talked twice over this weekend about something, so, I mean, it's not like I'm not available, or I couldn't have let you come look through the law documents, I just don't leave them laying around, so, I mean, they're proposals, so they're in my office.
right, but with it being in your office, I was up here during the day and you're at work.
I wasn't at work today.
What's that?
I wasn't at work today. I
Okay.
came in at 3:30. I've been here ever since. It's a holiday, Martin Luther King Jr. Day. Hope you all celebrated it. Well, I wasn't at work, I was at home most of the day. Well, that's the recommendation that I have for you. So it's like every other appointment, you can vote it up or down. But like I said, Rich and I have been through this. We had a conversation about that and who we felt was best for us going forward, so. And not everything's an interview process.
Well, when it comes to the city that I represent and using their tax dollars, I think that we should have a little bit more insight than just reading a bio.
Sometimes that's all you get.
Well, in this situation, I don't think that's all we should get.
Jimmy's probably one of the first people I didn't interview for this city job. Somebody else did. I reviewed his credentials and asked our administrator, do you think this is a good hire? You interviewed him, is this who we should go with? And I trusted him and signed off on his offer. It says the appointment compensation for this service is to be in accordance with the written engagement agreement attached to the resolution. The appointment herein shall be in effect until terminated by the city or the law firm. So you don't like the legal service, you can just simply terminate it. We have the same thing with EEI. I'm sure in that language, it just says if we come to a point where we don't agree or want to do business anymore, there's an out clause in the process. Any other comments from council? I mean, Fred, you came in and reviewed it. Don, you reviewed it.
Yeah, and I like that you brought Alderman Robinson into the mix. I like that you did an evaluation on him. I mean, I feel comfortable moving forward personally. I think that if there was a thought that we were going to take it a different path, that thought should have been conveyed to the mayor on the front end so that at the tail end of this process, we're not starting back over again, you know? We had a dialogue tonight. I don't necessarily agree about closed session, says you can do it, okay. Well, if we had an attorney sitting up there, we could have asked that question, hey, what are your thoughts, right? So we've gone several weeks without. We probably have a stack of things that need to be dealt with that staff's sitting on right now, and we need to get the ball rolling. So in all honesty, all of the attorneys, all the law firms that are represented in those evaluations are more than capable They have their strengths in certain areas, and municipal is on this one. It's just not at the top, but you're also trying to go with what the majority of the people, when they're looking for services, your eye's gonna go to the top of the list, right? So there's more business needs for most people than there is municipal.
Again, I'm not saying I don't want this firm, I just would like to be able to talk to them. That's all I'm saying. I'm not saying this is a bad firm, I'm not saying anything like that. I'm just asking the chance to be able to talk to them, that's all. And I do like that you got Rich to give his input and all that. I thought that was great. And the rubric and all of us sitting down, being able to at least look at the paperwork and I mean, it could have gone really bad and you just, not really bad, just in a whole different ballgame and you'd be like, nope, this is the one I pointed, this is what we're going with.
Yeah, I listened to you. You wanted more input, so I figured I'd take the most experienced person on council that's been through
Yeah,
something
and I'm
similar.
glad you did. So I'm not saying anything about that. I'm just asking for just a little bit more, that's all.
Yeah. I'd say give them a try. Like I said, there's a process to,
Well, I think that's probably what it is. I mean, as some people have expectations of court cases, things not dragging out for a year, you know? Can we just move it along, quit doing status, you know, case management, just let's go. And I think that's kind of where, you know, you give them a try and then you have a talk with them and things don't work out, then things don't work out after a period of time and you go to number two.
yeah,
But-
I didn't interview our collective bargaining law firm, right? I just had a conversation on the phone, I got a proposal, and the current one wasn't going to do it. I had to find somebody else to represent us because time was of the essence, so far it's worked out for us.
But that's once again, is our current or last law firm, they weren't aggressive at all. So whether it was adjudication or other litigation type things, there was no aggressiveness at all. And that's where I agree with Karsto, being able to talk to whoever our attorney might be would kind of be nice and feel them out. Okay, do you have somebody that can take care of collective bargaining? Do you have somebody that can take care of adjudication? Who's going to be doing that? What is their track record? Are they aggressive? It'd be kind of nice to see the city of Sandwich not sit on a case for 2 years when properties are clearly the blight of the city, and for 2 years, we have to sit and, well, it was continued, it was up for status, it was this, it was that. It'd be kind of nice to be able to talk to the attorney and ask some questions.
This law firm, I think they're the ones that had, what, 20 legal cases in their proposal of things that they've been involved in municipal law. We could look up each one of the cases to see how they favored on it. So, well, I'm gonna put it before you, you can vote on it or not. Because I have a lot of other things to discuss, and we're in a closed session about 2 of those, so. Audience comments, anyone wishing to make a public comment? Motion to adjourn the committee of the whole. Alderman Erickson, second by Alderman Ketchum. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, we'll take a quick break.